Hi, my name is Tammy O'Neil, Wildlife Care Manager with Lake Metroparks Wildlife Center and a member of the Ohio Bat Working Group. This video is going to discuss what to do if you find an injured or orphaned bat as part of the All About Bats video series. And in this video, we'll discuss how to safely capture them and get them the help that they need. Some of the reasons that you might find injured bats, and these are some of the top reasons we receive them at our wildlife center, are dog and cat attacks. They can find them outside. Sometimes they find them in your house before you do, or they can bring them indoors to you as a little present. They hit windows, especially migrating bats can run into tall buildings and windows in some of the major cities. Predator attacks, these guys are small, so they're easy prey for other animals. Glue and sticky traps, especially if they're in your attic or in your home, caught in strings or wires. White nose syndrome is a fungal disease that is decimating a lot of our bat species and the bat population. Weather, that can catch them off guard very easily, and this can cause them to be grounded. Bats have most bats cannot take flight from the ground, so usually if you see a grounded bat, it most likely will need your help. Before we go over how to safely capture a bat or get it help, I would like to go over some safety protocols and things to think about first. Most people want to help bats when they find them injured, but they might hesitate due to fear of bats or concerns about rabies. And these are very valid points, so we want to give you information so you can make smart decisions and have the confidence to get the bat help. As with any wild animal, especially an injured one, safety for yourself and the animal should be your first priority. And regardless if you find a bat indoors or outside, the following will apply. You never want to handle a wild animal with bare hands, especially an injured one, and never just walk up and approach an animal. Make sure that you assess the animal from a safe distance first. And what you're looking for is to see if the animal's injured, if you see blood, are they behaving strangely, like maybe running in, like going in circles, flipping over on its back, does it seem disoriented, not really aware of its surroundings, or not aware of your presence in any way. Also, you can assess the situation or the scene around the animal or the bat to see if you can maybe piece together what happened to it. All of this information will be really important when you call a local wildlife rehabilitator or wildlife agency for further assistance or information. These are questions that they're going to ask you, so you'll already have that ready for them. Also, never attempt to feed or treat an injured bat. You could feed it the wrong things or give it something it shouldn't have. Every species responds to different medications differently, and you could end up making them further injured or really sick. Also, never attempt to rehabilitate a bat on your own. We don't want anybody Googling how to rehabilitate bats. There's some really bad information out there. There's also good information, but besides it being illegal and it's not safe for you or the bat, especially somebody who's inexperienced, bats should only be treated by experienced vaccinated professionals. If you don't feel confident handling the situation or approaching the bat, even after watching this video, please call a local wildlife rehabilitator or wildlife agency for assistance right away. The sooner you can get the bat help, the better its chances of survival are. There's a link at the bottom of this slide that lists all the permitted wildlife rehabilitators in Ohio. I also want to cover some information about rabies because this is a main reason people hesitate to step in and help bats out. Bats can carry rabies, as any mammal can, but less than half of 1% of bats actually carry the disease. While it is unlikely, precautions should be taken. So that's why you always want to wear gloves. And if you can get the bat in a container without handling at all, that is obviously the safest route to take, and we will show you how to do that in this video. Rabies is a preventable viral disease of mammals, and it's often transmitted through the bite of a rabid animal. You cannot get rabies from feces, blood, or urine of a bat. It strictly is spread through the saliva. So the bat has to bite you and break the skin, but it can be contracted through the eyes, nose, or mouth if you have an open wound and the saliva should happen to get into that open wound or mucous membrane. Again, if you're being safe and wearing gloves and keeping the bat in a container, this should not happen. If you still need more information about rabies and bats, and that will help give you the confidence to help them, there's also a link on this slide with more information about that. If you were bitten by a bat in your attempts to help it or capture it, make sure you try to still capture the bat if possible, and make sure you call your local health department or physician immediately for further instructions. Rabies is 100% preventable. The main way is obviously not getting bit by a bat, but it is treatable, but time is of the essence. So you do want to get a hold of somebody right away. If you have the bat contained and captured, the health department will test the bat for rabies. Unfortunately, the only way they can test a bat or any animal for rabies is by testing the brain tissue, which means that animal will be euthanized, and the health department will take care of that, and they can give you results usually within the first 24 to 48 hours after the bite occurred. Also to note, if a bat was found in a room, regardless if it's injured or not, with a person who cannot reliably rule out physical contact, like a sleeping person, a child, a mentally disabled person, or intoxicated person, the bat should definitely be tested for rabies if you were able to capture it. And then the health department will give you further instructions from there. Sometimes people think they weren't bit because they don't see a bite wound, but their bite wounds are very tiny, or could be in a location on your body that you can't see, such as on your back, on your head, or something like that. So if you're bitten, make sure that you report it. So you have found a bat, and now what do? Well, again, the first thing you want to do is put gloves on, and the types of gloves we're talking about is a pair of gardening gloves, leather gloves, or thin winter gloves, anything that you probably have laying around the house already. So if you find a bat inside and it's flying around and looks healthy, or you find more than one bat in your house or building, it could be that you have a hibernaculum or a maternal colony, or very possibly the bat accidentally entered your home through a door, window, or screen. Remember, they can fit through anything the size of the tip of your pinky. If that is the case, there is a whole video called Bats in Buildings that is part of the All About Bats video series that will guide you step by step on how to deal with those situations. If the bat is in your home and it's injured, it's very possible it ended up there by a dog or cat attack. They could have found it outside and brought it in, or the bat was already in your home and the dog or cat happened to find it. If that's the case and you don't know if your dog or cat were bitten by the bat, hopefully they are vaccinated for rabies already. If you're not sure if they're up to date or they don't have a vaccination, you will need to call your veterinarian. There's other times bats can be, if they're hibernating in your home, a lot of our crevice-dwelling bats, such as the big brown bat, will use homes as hibernaculums. When it's warmer periods during the winter time, sometimes they can wake up and they're looking for food. Other times, white nose syndrome is the fungal disease we mentioned earlier. The fungus can grow on their face and their wings and actually get into their tissue, and this happens more frequently in the winter time. The fungus is very cold loving and it can spread from bat to bat, and they will hibernate a lot of times together. If that's the case and they have a warm spell, or they've been trying to take care of, like their immune system's trying to fight this fungus, or they're trying to remove the fungus off their face or their wings, they're expending a lot of energy they can't afford to lose during the winter time. So during these warm spells, they might wake up in search of food, and a lot of times you're going to find them in a very weakened state. They're lethargic, they're thin, and they definitely will need help in that situation. They also, if they already are in your home, can get caught in mouse or glue traps or entangled, and if that's the case, again, they definitely need help. Does the bat definitely need your help or further help from a wildlife rehabilitator? You want to definitely assess the bat's behavior from a safe distance. Again, you're looking to see if they are despondent, disoriented, you see injuries or blood, they're not moving at all, they're flipping over on their back, they're not flying. In those situations, they definitely will need help. Now, just because a bat is hanging on a wall or a door or window doesn't mean it's not injured. If they can hang naturally upside down using their feet, that's what they're going to do because that's a comfortable position for them. But that doesn't mean their wings aren't hurt or they might have some head trauma. So make sure you assess them or watch them for a little bit to see how they're behaving. Obviously, if they're caught in something, they definitely need help. If the bat is flying around and it's very alert, again, it probably doesn't need help. It just needs captured and released again. If you determine that definitely needs help, then make sure you call a wildlife rehabilitator immediately, and they can help you assess the bat's condition over the phone. And a lot of times it helps if you take a photo or a video of the bat and you can text it or email it to the center, and that will give them more information to help you the best way they can. Now, when you go to capture a bat, what you're going to need is your pair of gloves, a small container you can securely close. Make sure you put air holes in it no bigger than 1/4 inch before you put the bat in. It's really good to use a clear container if you can. That way you can actually get a close look at the bat and assess it after you've captured it in the container, but a shoebox or something like that will work as well. Also, you want to provide material in the box or container that will give them something to cling to. They won't slide around, and it'll give them comfort and keep them less stressed. Don't use anything that has cloth or looped materials in it. Their nails and their teeth can get caught in those. Fleece, flannel, sheets, anything like that is good to use, and you can also use those to help capture the bat. And you also want a small piece of thin cardboard. This is one of the techniques to try to slide it underneath the bat and into the container so you don't actually have to grab it. Now that you're ready to capture the bat, this slide has a video that will show you a step-by-step process on how to capture them. Make sure if the bat is flying around your home that you wait until it has stopped flying and has rested somewhere before attempting to approach it to capture it. We don't really show how to use nets in these videos because nets can actually cause more damage than good when capturing bats. But if that makes you comfortable, then make sure you use a net that has really small holes and that you're not swinging at the bat like badminton or baseball, because the edges and the framing of the netting could actually injure them. So if you can avoid using a net, it's preferable that you don't use one. If you don't feel confident trying to capture the bat, then make sure you contact a local wildlife rehabilitator or wildlife agency for further information or help. Make sure all your supplies are ready to go and you have your gloves on. Now that the bat is captured, now what do you do with it? Well, first of all, if it was healthy and flying around, you can release it outside if it's spring through fall time and it's above 60 degrees for a few days with some clear weather. Set the container up off the ground or in a tree, take the lid off, and it should fly away later that evening. And you can always go out and check and make sure that it's left the area. If it hasn't left or it's still there the next morning, then it most likely needs help. Obviously, if the bat was injured or orphaned, or you're really just not sure if its condition and it should be released or not, then call a wildlife rehabilitator and try to get it there as soon as possible. Until you can get it there, keep it in a warm, quiet spot. and that will help keep it calm and from further injuring itself. If it appears healthy but it's wintertime or a colder time of year, you will need to get the bat to a wildlife rehabilitator for care or overwintering. In Ohio, we have crevice-dwelling bats and we have tree-dwelling bats. Most likely, if you find a bat in your home, it's going to be a crevice-dwelling bat, and they will hibernate or stay here throughout the winter. The tree-dwelling bats usually migrate and leave this area for the winter time. So a lot of times if you find a bat on the ground, it could be both, but a lot of times it will be a tree-dwelling bat. If you would like more information on these types of species or help identifying the species of the bat you found, we also have a video called Bat Species of Ohio that's part of the All About Bats video series. So anyway, if you find a bat on the ground, most cases it does need help. Bats are not comfortable on the ground. It's not normal for them to hang out on the ground, and this can be due to weather. They could be caught in a storm. There could be a cold snap that they weren't expecting in the spring or fall time. It could be a juvenile bat, or it could be due to a predator attack, or that they've hit a window and now they're experiencing a concussion or head trauma. Again, assess the bat situation from a safe distance and wear gloves. So the first video we showed you was how to capture bats, where it's really easy to slide a piece of cardboard up underneath it with the container over the bat, and this way you don't have to handle the bat with your hands. We are going to show you another video of how to actually scoop up the bat with your hands if it's in a spot where it's not easy to get a container over it and a piece of cardboard under there, like if it's in a flower bed or uneven ground or something like that. You do want to be very careful when you're grabbing a bat or capturing at all of its wings. They are very fragile. And you also want to make sure that when you do handle it, you either scoop it up with both hands, or you can hold it in between your thumb and your pointer finger, as long as you fold those wings in nice and gently. And this can work even once you put your fleece or flannel over the bat. Just make sure you don't put a lot of pressure down on them so they can still breathe. In this slide, there's a video on how to capture a bat on the floor or ground, just using the material in your gloves. And you want to just make sure that you approach them quietly and slowly and have all your supplies ready. So you can watch the video for further information on that. Now the bat is captured. Again, now what? When to take it to a wildlife rehabilitator right away. Again, if it's injured, if it's a juvenile found alone, it's disoriented, weak, you're not sure of the condition, or it's really bad weather for long periods of days. When to observe them and possibly release. If you already know it was pretty alert, maybe it hit a window and was just loopy for a little bit, sometimes just letting it relax, it recovers. Or there was maybe some bad weather for a day or two and you just keep it in a container, let it warm up. A lot of times you might see it recover and get really active and it'll fly away. If it's a juvenile or you see the mom around, or it's a mom with babies, the next slide will show you what to do in that sense. But if you're not sure what to do, always call a wildlife rehabilitator for the best advice on how to proceed further. If you find a mom with babies, and again, this most likely will be your tree-dwelling bats if you find it outside. In Ohio, bats typically will have babies May to June. Most bats will have 1 to 2 pups. The red and hoary bats, which are tree-dwelling bats, can have up to 4 pups. Sometimes they will move their babies and they can, another animal might try to knock them out of the sky, or Again, weather could be a problem and they end up getting grounded and they just need help getting up off the ground. Once you get them into a tree or a surface that's off of the ground, they usually can fly away fairly easily. Make sure that when you find a bat on the ground, or if you think it's a mom with babies, that you do try to look them over and see if you see any injuries, and then carefully put them in the closest tree. The next slide will show you a video on how to do that without having to actually handle the bat, because if you try to grab her, she could fly away and leave her babies behind. So again, you just want to be quiet and calm and try the technique in the next slide. Of course, if the mom is injured in any way, make sure then you try to get her into a container with the capture techniques we showed you and get her to a wildlife rehabilitator with her babies. This video will show you how to transfer a bat from the ground to a tree, again without handling them. And once you get them up in the tree, they might sit there for a little bit, but eventually they'll fly away. Again, if they're still there the next day, then make sure you call a wildlife rehabilitator or wildlife agency first for further information on what steps to take. Things to remember until you can get the bat help. Again, remember not to attempt to feed or provide water to the bat. Keep the bat away from pets and children. And remember, it's really important to keep the bat warm by providing an external heat. If you're using a heating pad, keep it set on low and make sure the container you have it in is half on the heating pad and half off, so they can get away from the heat if they would like to. Bats use a lot of energy, and an injured bat even more so the sooner you can get it somewhere for help, again, the higher its chances of survival. And just keep it in a nice quiet area. Thank you for watching. We hope this video was really helpful. And remember, bats do need our help. So if there's any way that you can help them out, we really appreciate it.